doping, FKTs, jokes, ugly rocks. This episode has everything. And you know what? If it's too slow, crank that thing up to 1.5 speed. That's how I listen to every podcast. That is a free tip. Thank you for joining. This is so good. Let's just get into it. I hope you stay till the end because, man, it's magical. We got Gen Z humor. We got millennial humor. We got boomer humor. All right, let's go. Welcome back to my quest to become an influencer. You are in the right place. All right, everyone, raise your hands if you're listening to this. Thanks. I just wanted to get a quick head count of who's listening. I have probably all the analytics on my end, but I lost my password, so I was just going to do it the old-fashioned way. Let's dive into things today. There is just so much out there all the time, and everyone always wants to hear my thoughts, of course. First off, I just dropped all my money to sign up for Cocodona again next year. The race has already sold out. It's pretty crazy where this race has come. It was actually my second ever ultra marathon back in 2021, and it came right on the heels of attempting the Barkley marathons, and just asked if I wanted to run. It didn't sell out that year, jumped in it. Didn't have any of the knowledge of ultra running, didn't know how to fuel, hydrate, or anything. I actually got one of those weird requests on Instagram where it's like, oh, do you want to use our product and we'll send it to you for free and let us know what you think. And that company was actually Liquid IV. So I just got free electrolytes to run that race, and that's sort of how I got through it. It took like 4 days, and since then, I don't think I've ever been over like 3.5 days, maybe under 80 hours. So every other time I've run it has been like 20 hours faster, which is a good illustration of how much work, experience, and practice those things take. All right, let's dive into some news here. One crazy thing just happened. Heather Anderson just broke the unsupported record on the Arizona Trail. That's an 800-mile trail. She carried everything she needed from start to finish. And not only everything she needed, but once she started, she had to keep carrying her trash until she hit the end. When you see there's a cool video out there of her hitting the finish. And when she hits it, her pack is like sagging and like depleted because she ate through. So I think it was 24 days. If you do 2 days of 2 pounds of food per day, that's like 48 pounds of food. That's just insane. And then add on top of that, some of the water carries and the sections on there are like 20 miles. So you need another probably 8 pounds of water there, 4 liters. So her pack, just without even accounting for gear, not even counting base weight, would be like 50 pounds plus. So pretty crazy. So that was a really cool story. There's actually been one other unsupported FKT on something that long. Art Brody actually did it a couple years ago, and I voted for him for, I think, 5th place maybe in FKT of the year because I was just so astonished someone would even go after I think it took him like 30 or 40 days, but go after a record like that unsupported. It's just like out of the realm of even being able to imagine or envision. So that's a pretty cool story. Heather Anderson also has the FKTs, or records if you're new here, on the Pacific Crest Trail and the Appalachian Trail. She's also written a couple books if you're a book person. I wrote a book too. Check it out. Everything's called Free Outside, including the podcast. Anywhere podcasts are sold, all the other stuff. In other exciting FKT news, Alex Wright, who is all right with, I think, 4 L's in there, on Instagram just started his attempt at breaking the PCT, I believe, self-supported record. FKT season is really heating up. He's a pretty accomplished hiker, through hiker in general, pretty quick, and had some massive training before. He's just dealt with some injuries on some past FKTs, so that'll be fun to follow. Christian Morgan is out attempting the Appalachian Trail FKT again. So the big trails really heating up. And then Nick Gagnon he's on the site for tracking now for Triple Crown of through hiking. So exciting times as people try to break these iconic records. And if you want a podcast, I interviewed Nick Fowler a couple episodes ago on his record-breaking FKT attempt that was successful on the Pacific Crest Trail, and more from Nick Fowler later. All right, that's your FKT news. Let's keep diving in. UTMB has gained some headlines this week. So I don't know if you know what UTMB is. Maybe some do, some don't, but it's probably, well, it's thought of as like the biggest, most competitive trail race probably in the world. So it's a circle around Mont-Blanc, goes through 3 different countries. It's 106 miles long. And until last year, an American had never won it, but Jim Walmsley won. Okay, a little background on the race. So back in the 80s, they used to have a stage race actually around Mount Blanc. And then they had like a relay. They had a few different smaller events where a few hundred people would show up. And then a fire burned in the tunnel out there, which shut down, which kind of disconnected Chamonix, which is the main like congregating point for all these races and competitions. And that opened the door. So that was in like 1999. It was closed for 3 years. And so come 2002, the Palettes decided with some coaxing from their friends to start a trail race. So they started one. Prior to this, all the races around Mount Blanc had been mostly on the roads, but there were all these trails that circled it. So they came up with one, figured out how to put it on, and they didn't think many people would show up. I mean, first year race, but in 2003, the first year of the race, 700 people showed up. Now it's in the thousands. They have multiple distances. It's a pretty wild event. You go through all these towns where they're just like celebrating you. People are lining the streets. There's hundreds of media there. It's covered for like through multiple different countries, and multiple different continents even show up. It's pretty cool. And historically, the American men have struggled till this year when we went 1-2. Take that, rest of the world. Winners, back-to-back world champs. So recently, they just pledged 100,000 euros. What's the conversion? Who knows? To fight some of the doping in trail running. And to me, it is a number, so it's less than zero, but it seems like a pretty small number. Just this last year, they have a few smaller races. They have like a 50-kilometer race, and by smaller, I don't mean less people, just smaller in distance and duration. So they have this 50K race, they have a 100K race, they have a couple other longer ones too. But last year, the winner, actually, Stian Augerman, got, he tested positive. So and UTMB has been somewhat vocal the last few years about pledging support for making the sport more clean and stuff like that. So it's just interesting that this pledge of 100,000 euros comes out right on the heels of the winner of one of their prestigious races testing positive. So that's interesting. And then I just wanted to compare that to some of the other sports, because I, like many other people, think trail running's pretty dirty. There's pretty big contracts. There's some athletes have 6-figure contracts. There's lots of money in performing. There's even the influencer level of money in the sport. It's getting really big really fast. So I thought, what's another individual type sport that's kind of related? Well, not really related at all. But I looked up like how many times they test like tennis players, because you think, are they doping? Who knows? But they're getting tested like 6 to 12 times per year in tennis. So I think we've got a long way to go. I believe the 100,000 euros only pays for about 100 tests, which they put out are going to be somewhat random, and they're switching testing agencies. But overall, doping has got to be pretty prevalent just with all the money, and there's podium bonuses now. There's bonuses for FKTs. There's funding. New companies are coming into the sport. You can just see the explosion of growth. I think an easy way, I used to work in business consulting and accounting, all that jazz. Was like a contract controller for a few years. But one of the big signs that I think the industry is blowing up is the rise of cottage companies. So it's very different than thru hiking in the type of sport, but I think the rise in cottage companies is pretty similar, because once you get a niche big enough, there can be more niches, I hope I'm saying that right, under it. So there's like a niche for lube, because you need that in trail running. There's a niche for water bottles. There's niches for electrolytes. So all these companies now have a bigger market to take a chunk out of, because before you had like Goo or Gatorade or just these massive companies, but they're not specific to the sport, and people are just applying them to the sport. So the sign that the community and I guess the overall sport as a whole is exploding in popularity is all these niches and country specific styles and things like that coming out of it. And it's really gained a lot more than just being a community of ultra runners. There's multiple smaller communities under them, because you even have like the fixed time community, which runs in circles for a certain amount of time to see how many miles they can go. You have the mountain running, which is shorter, faster stuff. And then you have the coveted 100-mile distance, and now we're bumping up into 200, 300 miles. And then, of course, you have FKTs lurking in the background as well. So interesting that we're finally getting the biggest player in the sport, UTMB, which is owned by the Ironman group. So tons of money, pledging 100,000 euros. So it's a start, long way to go. I think we need to get a lot of other organizations to join. But the tough thing with trail running, say like golf or tennis or the NBA, all these have like an overarching governing organization where the players get like a tour card or something like that. But in trail running, it's very fragmented. You have like Western States as the North American major trail running organization or race in general, which is thought of as like the championship over here. You have still massive races in like Javelina 100, which is a 100-miler, if you couldn't guess, which are like mid-tier, which could maybe afford drug testing. But then you have all these smaller races. Like living in Montana, we have multiple different races of different durations, where it's like last weekend we had one that was, you paid like $20. You show up and you run up a mountain and back down, and you race the other 100 or so people that show up. So there's all these like mom and pop type race organizations and races that are put on where drug testing will never be. And that's sort of like marathon running, where there's a lot of stories of especially, well, just very talented runners that are doping, that will go to these lower tier events and win like the $2,000, $3,000 cash prize on the weekend because they're not testing. So it is interesting, especially when you start throwing prize money into the world of trail running, which I believe they're starting to do at UTMB and other races, and throw that on top of the performance bonuses and the contracts. And it's a pretty interesting state we're in, because I don't think we'll ever be able to fix it all. And say like some of the top athletes, I don't even want to throw names out there because we're talking about doping, but if they are looking for things like career accomplishments, you can tack on these smaller mom and pop races, and that will add up to a number of finishes or victories or things like that, and really beef up your resume. But in the grand scheme of things, these will never be able to be at the level of the top tier races, where they are a lot better able to test and mitigate the doping concern. So enough about this hard-hitting topic, but I do want to go back to one thing about UTMB. So it started in 2003 and it just exploded. In the last 20 years, it's become a major media event. It was one of the first races to stream. I actually watched it in 2017 before I had ever run an ultramarathon. This was back when I thought trail runners had to run every step. Since then, I've learned that power hiking's a myth. Maybe I'll do a little speech on that a little bit later. But UTMB, what makes it so special is there's so many people that live near the course, so they can come out, witness, and have a good crowd and atmosphere. And something cool, and I think why Cocodona has sold out and become so intriguing to so many people, is it has that same thing. Like, let's see, you start out just north of Phoenix, and then you go through Crown King, which is a community there. Last year, there was actually a guy sitting out there with his table and a bottle of Fireball whiskey and asking all the runners if they wanted shots. So we have that grassroots movement there. And then you go through Prescott after that. That's a pretty big town. There's plenty of people that could come out and have that crowd atmosphere there. And then you go through like Cottonwood area. That's a big town. A old lady was watering her lawn and cheering for me this year. Then you go through Sedona. There's more people there. Pretty big town, well known. There's opportunity for people to come out and cheer there. And then you also have Flagstaff, major town in in Arizona, maybe the third largest. I don't know. I mean, if you just take out Greater Phoenix and Greater Tucson area, but you have all these towns that are connected by this race and the opportunity for them to come out and cheer. And that's where the hype builds and that live stream and then that exposure to other people and really gets things to take off. So I think that that's a very interesting thing. So it took UTMB a few years to really get that major worldwide traction, but Cocodona is well on its way and it's pretty interesting. And we'll just see how that goes. But that's my prediction. All these other 200s really intriguing, really cool, but they're presenting a different opportunity than when you're connecting towns and getting people to come out. And I think the originator and the owner of the company, Aravaipa, that puts it on, Jamil Curry, originally had that vision. And in the last 2 years and in the changeover, having done it all 4 years it's been around, I've really seen this where the communities are embracing the Cocodona runners. And I think as the live stream grows, which will be really driven by technology too, and just the ability to tell stories and interweave them, which comes with money as well. But it's all going to prop itself up and turn into a pretty good trail running festival. I mean, the event ends right in downtown Flagstaff, and that's pretty cool. But in a few years, we won't have a cop like this year that came over to investigate what I was doing finishing there at that time. That's my Cocodona spiel. Just a quick interruption from the regularly scheduled programming. I had a call from my sister and, we had to chop it up for a while. Anyways, so now let's go back into power hiking. We put a pin in that. So I grew up hearing about walking, hiking, climbing, also walking, again, if I didn't say that, but I never heard about this term called power hiking until I entered the ultra running community. And it is just hilarious to me because it is literally walking. But in order to consider yourself an ultra runner, you always have to say that in that section, I power hiked. Okay, dude, you walked. Totally okay. People hike or they walk. Pretty much the same thing. Maybe one's on a trail, one's on a road. So I just really wanted to put this out there that it's okay to call it hiking. I don't think I've ever done power hiking in my life. Is that where you load up a backpack with weight and you do some power cleans out there? You're doing a weightlifting regimen while you're hiking. Does that turn hiking into power hiking? Or is it just the chance to make a very athletic sport like ultra running where you move it if you move it 5 miles an hour, you basically win every single trail running race. But, well, if it's 100 at least. But are we just calling it power hiking so that we all seem faster? Okay, that's my crisis dilemma issue with the world for today. Also, lately, I've been getting a lot of targeted ads for making my LinkedIn photo better. And if Google and AI and ad managers are listening to me, I do not care about my LinkedIn photo, but if you guys want to follow me, check it out. All right, and lastly, let's just move into a life update. It's been 3 weeks, maybe 4, was not required to do math for this podcast. They do not make you take math to be a podcaster. It's actually pretty cool. The requirements to become a podcaster are maybe internet connection. I don't even think that's a solidified thing that they require to get your podcasting card. But anyways, math. So it's been 3 weeks since I've run. I haven't run a step since then. I did try to play some pickup basketball against my PT's orders, but I am going crazy. I've been trying to do this swimming thing where you get in a pool and you swim from one end to the other, and then you turn around and you swim back. And the pool I use, it's at the gym I go to, which is a combo hot springs gym. And they got a really good sauna. It sounds bougie. It's not. It's mostly a bunch of grumpy old men in the sauna that complain about life and about big cities being super dangerous, even though none of them have lived in one. But I'm getting off topic. Swimming. I did 86 laps in this pool, and the pool is 88 degrees. It's hot, I think, for a pool. I'm not a big swimmer. I did used to do triathlons, and we're staying really on topic with this story. But 86 laps, and I got out of the pool, and I was on the verge of heat stroke. That is so hot to be exercising in a pool. And I think it just points to I'm not that good in heat, which is also why I go to that gym with the sauna. So we brought that full circle. So I've done 2 days of swimming. I've done a few sessions of walking, hiking, power hiking, and a ton of PT and strength work because I have never been on the bench this long. What do you call it? Like on the DL? I am out for the count from running right now. So we will see where this goes, but I think we're going to get back on the old treadmill and do some running with like the Ultra G this week. So that's going to be something. And as we close out the episode, I just asked ChatGPT to write us some jokes so we can make sure that this is funny enough to keep our listeners engaged. And then I got one recommendation at the end. All right, opening up ChatGPT, and what are some jokes about ultra running? This is going to be a really good segment. I'm sure everyone's going to be super engaged. Okay, number one, why don't ultra runners get lost? Because they follow their gut instincts, which are usually saying, where's the next aid station? Okay, not funny. Why did the ultra runner bring string to the race to tie the race after 50 miles? Also not funny. I don't think ChatGPT gets ultra running. What's an ultra marathoner's favorite type of music? A marathon of rock. Wow, this is really bad. Why are ultra runners bad at playing hide and seek? Because they always go the extra mile. I don't know that works. Okay, last one. What's an ultra runner's favorite vegetable? Answer, endurance peas. That is not good at all. Okay, I did this other fun thing the other day where I plugged into ChatGPT. Write a Gen Z sentence. And here's what it came up with. OMG, I can't even with these TikTok trends. They're totally iconic. And so to be fair, I had it write a boomer sentence. Back in my day, we didn't have all these fancy smartphones. We had to walk uphill both ways to school in the snow. That's your boomer sentence. And to be fair, here's your millennial sentence written by ChatGPT. I am a millennial. And it is. Millennial sentence. Let's grab some avocado toast and cold brew while we brainstorm our side hustle ideas. So this is really what AI should be used for, that and drawing out your hallucinations, which I also love doing. And I think we'll close on one thought and one recommendation. Let's start with the fun recommendation. So we hit on a little bit of FKTs with Heather Anderson breaking the unsupported 800-mile record on the Arizona Trail. Simply incredible. But a book I wanted to throw out there is Itch by Nick Fowler, which is about his first thru hike, which is also when he set an FKT on the Pacific Northwest Trail. Pretty engaging, pretty cool to read about someone learning about thru hiking as they're doing it, setting a record, racing against the clock. It's pretty fun, the combo and everything within there. Good story. He's married, so it has a lot of the interpersonal relationship with his wife as well out there. Highly recommend. And the last thing I'll leave you with, if you made it this far, I better get that 5-star review, is this thing I thought about on a recent walk. So there's so many different types of rocks out there. You got diamonds. That's like probably the pinnacle. You got like rubies, gems, sapphires, crystals. Personal favorite. Are crystals real? I'm not going to answer that. Maybe, but you don't want to deny them in case they are. Anyways, you even got like skipping rocks. You got big boulders that people take photos with. But the lowest level of rock has to be an ugly rock. All it does is just like sit there for eternity. Just gets picked over. Super sad. There's big boulders out there that people get photos of. There's mountains. There's iconic things. There's like there's cornerstones. There's beautiful molded sculptures, I think. I don't know. Not well traveled. I live in Montana. But I was just thinking, man, it sure would suck to be an ugly rock. Like, at least we get to interact with each other and stuff like that. If you're an ugly rock, you just sit up there for eternity. And life just goes by. You don't get to get picked up. No one's interested in your story. No one knows what you've been through. Ugly rocks, man. All right. Thanks for listening to another interesting podcast. Where will this thing go in the future? I don't know, but probably the top of the charts. All right. That's it. Stay elite, my friends.